Hey everybody, this is my last episode before Christmas 2017 and New Year's. And it's also the last episode in this series of speaking to women who are not mothers. I'm not finished with it yet, but I'm just putting a pause on it for now because in the new year, in January, I'm starting another interesting and fun series. I started this podcast thinking it would be all about women talking about life as a mom, sharing their experiences about pregnancy and birth and all the craziness and joys of motherhood. And so far, it's been super fun doing this, meeting incredible women, and the conversation has opened up so much that I've wanted to expand more on the topic, bringing in women who aren't mothers, talking about their side of the story. And now in January, I'm starting another new series where I get to speak to men this time. So I've got a fantastic lineup of men. I'm super happy about this, getting to talk to lots of men, and it'll be about their views on fatherhood. The interesting thing is that a lot of these people, a lot of these men, well, they're from all walks of life. Some are single, some are married. I'm interviewing gay men, straight men, and some are fathers and some aren't. So it'll be a really fun series where we get to hear their stories and views on fatherhood. I'm Dr. Marianne Shiozawa, and you're listening to episode 25 of the You're Doing Great Mom podcast. In this final episode of 2017, I'm speaking to Lillian Lartey. Lillian is not a mother. I met Lillian through a local business group here in Streatham, London, and we instantly clicked. I see her as a beautiful old soul with so much wisdom, love, femininity, and vitality. She's a personal trainer, she's a massage therapist, and I consider her a life coach for women because she's so grounded in her values and commitment to having an extraordinary life. It was a great chat together because she came over to do this recording in person, and it was so lovely to be in her presence and space. Her life story is fascinating, and I loved talking to her. Enjoy. I am here sitting with Lillian Lartey, and I'm so excited. And she's here. She came to my house. So thank you so much for being here.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So Lillian, I invited you or asked you to do this because I'm doing a series about women who, for some reason, are not mothers. Mm-hmm. And if you can start by just saying who you are and how old you are and what you do and why you are not a mother.
Okay, so as you said, my name is Lillian Lartey. I'm 46 and I work with men and women to help them, support them with their physical, emotional and nutritional well-being in a holistic way. And I've been doing that for the past 18 years. And when I was young, I grew up with three siblings, all of us females, so no brothers. And it was always one of those things that you expected when you grew up, become an adult, you'd get married, have children. But for whatever reason, it's not happened. Now, it's not something that I get into big conversations about. So when I saw your post about it, and I thought, oh, this is interesting, Mm-hmm. And many
because we met. I'm sorry, I interrupt people like every now and then. I apologize, but because we met on Facebook like years ago.
Yeah, years ago.
Right?
And we initially met at one of the Streatham network meetings.
Okay, so we met there first,
I
right?
think so.
Okay, so we had it was one of those, local community business gatherings. Yeah. So yes, I remember that. Okay, yeah.
And then we connected.
And we connected there, and that was really great. And then we just kind of kept in touch, and cool. Following each other on Facebook. That's right. Okay. Carry on. You refreshed my memory.
So, it was always one of those things between me and my sisters that's what was going to happen. That's what's expected. But I can only speak from my perspective, not my sisters. But I guess generally it's been a case why we're not mothers is simply a matter of not meeting the right person. The right person in the sense of the right person for us. Because having been through several relationships, it's a case of whether that person was ready to have children, whether that person was responsible enough to have children. Because the last thing I wanted, me personally, was to get involved with someone and become a single mum. Because I had many friends who had got into a similar situation where they'd met somebody and then their partner just kind of went wayward or was just not interested in terms of responsibility for the children. And then they simply became a single mum. In which case it was either they were left with the household and a whole host of responsibility came with that, or they had to move out of the existing household to start a new life.
With children.
A whole host of things happened, and I was like, no, I don't want that, you know. So along the way, it hasn't bothered me as such, because I guess I'm the type of person that I'm tuned in spiritually. I'm tuned in to know that I'm here for a purpose. So my purpose has always been key. So whether my purpose is to be a mother, great, in terms of a biological mother. If my purpose is to be a spiritual mother, where I have my friends and their children come to me and I look after them for a period of time and then gladly hand them back, then I'm still a mother in that sense. And that often happens, because I go to a great church and we have a home group. And, you know, and the children just gel with me, you know, it gives me an opportunity to act like a child, you know, and not have that responsibility as a parent and then hand them back at the end of the day, you know. And for me, that's fulfilling. I don't go away sort of thinking, oh, I wish I had children. I'm not that type of person. If that's in my line of purpose, then great. You know, I'm open to that. If it's not, then that's equally great, because I know that I always have friends around who always need help or support with their children in one way or another.
It is quite similar. Like the theme is pretty consistent. A lot of women have said that they just haven't met the right person or didn't feel inspired enough to have a child with that person that they were with, or you know, so it's, you know, you said a lot in there that's really, I wouldn't know, you know, I don't talk to, I mean, you know, most of my friends are mothers, and so I don't know that many women that are not mothers, and it's just something that I don't know, that conversation just doesn't, it's kind of like, I think that a lot of people are curious, but to get into that and ask that question, why are you not a mother? That's a really personal question.
It is personal, and for some women it's a sensitive question as well, because you don't know what their story is. Some may have been pregnant and then unfortunately those children have become born too soon or miscarried, or something has happened. So it is sensitive when people say, so do you have children? And I just say, no, I haven't, not yet. And then,
is that what you say?
Yeah. Because I'm still open to that. I've got friends who, with partners, and they had children years ago, and then all of a sudden they've met a new partner, and they've had children at age 48, at age 50, at age 49. So I'm like, oh, there's still hope for me then. So, you know, so I am open to that still, if that happens. And like I said, equally, if it doesn't happen, then I'm still tuned into what my purpose is here to fulfill. So,
are you with someone now? Do you have a partner?
At the moment,
okay,
but I'm open to.
Yeah, good, awesome. Yeah, that's a really good thing. So, when you were younger, did you want to be a mother, or were you not sure, or do you remember when those thoughts started happening?
I definitely wanted to be a mother. I wanted to have 6 children.
Did you?
And I always said that.
And you said, oh my gosh, you said that you've got 3 sisters.
Yeah.
And they all don't have children. No. That's so interesting. Is your mother still alive?
Yes, she is.
And your parents, or you're both?
My dad passed last year.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But does your mother ask you guys, like, are you the oldest, or
I'm number 3.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So I've got one after me, 2 above me. So before, years ago, was really concerning for her, especially as her friends were coming with grandchildren photos and showing them, and it used to break her heart. And she used to ask us, she says, you know, why don't you guys just go out and have children? You know, and I was like, with who?
She's she's got 4 girls. She should know more than anyone that having lots of children is like...
It's challenging, especially in this day and age.
Yeah.
And so I used to say to her, with who? Have children with? And I said, and who's going to look after them? I said, are you going to look after them? If you are, then that's fine.
Yeah.
But we've gone past that phase now, and she's kind of accepted that if it happens, great. If it doesn't, then that's equally fine. And I think it's also on the basis of her having her own spiritual children around her who are having children. So she's kind of a grandmother in a spiritual way. So that's kind of taken the edge off a little bit. But yeah, if one of us were to have children, that would be like the icing on the cake for her. Definitely.
That's cute. Wow, that's so interesting. 4 girls, and you all went into a path where, and do you think, like, if I was to ask them, or we were to ask them, why did you not become a mother, or, and it's so hard to say that without having that like, this. Oh, I don't want to offend them, because it's not that. It's just purely out of curiosity. But do you think that they would say similar to what you said about, well, I haven't really found the...
Yeah, because there's times when we've been together and someone has asked us that question as to, okay, so what's happening? Why don't you have children, or why are you not with somebody? And it's been the case of, well, we haven't met the right person for us. My younger sister's with somebody. I'm not sure whether she wants to have children.
Oh, okay.
I haven't really had that conversation with her, actually.
Oh, yeah. She's going to listen to this, right? And then it's going to spark up the conversation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But funnily enough, it's not something that when we're all together, it's not something that we go into. It's not something we discuss.
Oh, okay.
It's not, like I said, we don't mourn or grieve over it and say, we wish we were somebody, or wish we had this, that, and the other. It's just a case of us just living life one day at a time and seeing what holds for us,
Yeah, that's actually really cool, because you could totally see that kind of thing, that kind of I'm not, because, well, the thing is, I know some women who really wanted to have children. I really wanted to have children. I mean, the urge was really strong for me. And I don't know. I mean, I keep, since having these conversations like yours and women are saying, well, I didn't meet the right guy, et cetera, et cetera. If I didn't meet my husband, I don't know if, like that drive to have a child of your own, like a biological child of your own, a woman will do a lot to get that.
Oh yeah. I mean,
do you know what I mean?
I know of women who, because they've got that urge to be a mother, biological mother, and they haven't met the right partner, that they've gone down either the surrogacy route or adoption. And that's fine for them. If that connects with them, then that's great. And equally, I know people who they want to be a mother, but they are stuck in that grieving process still of, I want to be a mum, but I don't want to be a single mum, and I haven't met the right person yet. And it's a case of, well, what do you want to do? Because there are nowadays there's plenty of choices for us, and it's about navigating what is right for you. Whereas before in the olden days, I mean, talking maybe 50 odd years ago, if you weren't a mother and you weren't married, you'd be ostracized, and cursed, and
big time.
And then you'd end up marrying just anybody just for the sake of it. And then obviously that marriage wouldn't work out, and there'd be stresses in the relationship and with the children, etc. So there are so many factors into it. But I can still see in this day and age when people meet each other and eventually the question does come round to, so do you have any children then? Or are you with somebody? And I've never stopped to ask anyone and say, well, what do you think about that I'm not a mother, or I'm not with a partner?
Right, right. Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting that you bring up, back in the day when in the 60s and 70s, or even maybe the 80s, women who didn't have children must really have gotten a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
They got a lot of slack for it because, or they just, it's such a expectation,
yes.
especially before the 70s, I would think. I mean, I was born in, I'm 45, so like we're practically the same age. So yeah, in the early 70s, I mean, who knows? But I think it's so much has changed.
Yeah.
And yet it is, you look at just like the perspective, it's like a long time ago, but then at the same time, it's really not that long in terms of what, within a lifetime, it's not that long ago.
Yeah.
And yet now, at least in major cities like London and where I'm from in New York, there are a lot of women that don't have children or they're not with someone in a serious relationship, and they're perfectly happy with that. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're talking about your path, your spiritual path, your purpose. There are a lot of choices now for women. Yeah, and it's now becoming okay. And yet, you talk to, there's so many different like views. There is the arch feminist view, and then there's the, you look at the other end, men who are arch, what's the word I'm looking for?
Masculine.
Yeah, like that masculine, where they think that all women should stay at home kind of thing.
In the kitchen
and, barefoot and pregnant kind of thing, So you got those ends, but then there's so much more in between, so much more available and so much more in between. And I find that, it can get quite, and everyone's got an opinion, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, even I have friends who are mums, and sometimes they won't say it directly, but in a roundabout way, and they just say, "Oh, you're so lucky." I say, "In what sense?" "Yeah, but you can just go home and you can do what you want to do. You haven't got children screaming." I said, "And you're equally as blessed because you've got children."
Yeah.
So I help them to see it from that perspective, that you're blessed because that's your path to be a mother, and this is my path at the time, not to be a mother. So it's always, you look over the fence at someone else's garden and see, oh, your garden looks much better than mine type of thing, So there's always going to be that perspective of things. Unless you learn to appreciate, okay, this is the gift that I've been given. Let me make the most of it. Let me see the gift in this. Because it's not so much about, okay, I'm not a mom, then that's it, I'm a nobody, I don't belong in society, etc. There are plenty of people out there who need our support. There are elderly people that need our support. There are people who are lonely that need our support. Equally, there are children who are up for adoption, who are being fostered, who need our support. There are so many things out there, and it's about getting out of that grieving state and opening your eyes and looking at the wider perspective of why you're here on earth, what your purpose is at this time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love that. That is such great, because we do get stuck, people get stuck in that view of scarcity and what I don't have.
Scarcity and lack.
Yeah. And when it comes to matters of the heart or relationships or and motherhood, women who I think it's great that you have that ability to guide a woman who might live or be stuck in that scarcity or that lack, like she's less than or something like that.
Yeah.
Because it is true. I won't lie. Like I look at women like you who don't have children. And I'm like, if I, just to have that freedom for whenever I want is definitely a luxury. All mothers, especially with little children, we just look at that as total luxury, and yet that's just like, a daily thing in your life.
Yeah.
And it's about it's the perspective. It's taking yourself out of the picture and looking at it completely differently, which gives you so much more power.
It does.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Because you become more appreciative as well. I mean, ask any mum who's lost a child, you know, how that is for them. You know, when maybe they've been screaming their head off at a certain child or children that, oh, can't you get this right, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden that child is not there. You know, you don't want to get to that perspective of saying, oh, if only, if only. So it is about taking yourself out of that picture, looking at the bigger picture. Okay, I've been blessed with these children. What is my job? What is my purpose here? Yeah, they get on my nerves, but that's life. You know, how do I handle that? How do I nurture that? How do I get to work with that? And it's a lot of, for some women I come across, it's something that they don't learn or pick up because it's kind of, they feel that they're thrown into motherhood and it's a case of, right, just get on with it. You know, and they're just like, oh, it's like pushing someone into water and they don't know how to swim type of thing. Whereas if you're tuned in and appreciate, okay, I've got this child, this is my responsibility. And I think that's where we fall down in the Western world in terms of motherhood. Because if we look at, like my parents come from Africa. And
where?
if we look from Ghana.
Oh, okay.
West Africa.
Yeah.
So if we look from, say, the central part of the world going eastwards, a lot of the time when it comes to parenthood, it's not just the mum taking total responsibility of that child or those children. You've got a total village, you've got a total town taking care of that child. So that mother doesn't necessarily have those pressures that they do in the Western world. We also don't have those pressures of wanting to get a really good job, wanting to have A, B, and C, the best car, take the children to the best school, have the best clothes, have all this money, etc., go on the best holidays. All this pressure adds in. Why? Whereas when we appreciate our lives while we're here, and that mum gives birth in a village to a child, everybody celebrates that. That's everybody's child. It's not just that mum who's given birth to that child. It's everybody's responsibility. So you talk about wanting that luxury, that freedom. I mean, it's like my cousin, one of my cousins, they're always forever ringing. When my mum went back home, and one of them in particular is like on her fourth child, she's got no money to look after the children at all. The partner goes and comes to the village as and when he pleases. Okay. So,
and this is someone still in Ghana?
Yeah, still in Ghana.
And she's
forever calling my mum, I haven't got no money or this, that and the other. So my mum's told her when she went home, she says, don't have any more children because you can't look after them, you know. But the thing is, she will have these children, but other people will look after them. She hasn't got that added responsibility of all the children are totally her responsibility or the partner's responsibility. She can do as and what she pleases to. And that is I would say the precious gift of being brought up in a village, in a town, where you're not seen as the sole carer or responsibility owner of that child per se. If that child is wandering somewhere and being naughty, some adult will tell that child off. Do it here in England. Oh my goodness, social services will be called, police will be called. How dare you talk to my child in that way? Blah, 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 blah.
All hell breaks loose.
Exactly.
Wow.
But if we go with the proverb that, you know, it takes a village to bring up a child. It's so true. It does. Because we don't all necessarily have the skills. I know friends of mine when I look at them, I just think, you should not be a mother. Because they just do not have the skills to be able to cope with it. And I know women who will, you know, hold their hands up and just say, yeah, I wasn't meant to be a mum. Wow. They're just a hands-off mum. They'll have the children, but the partner will be more hands-on, you know, rather than them. It was a case of, well, oh, yeah, I'll just let my children do this or that and the other. They're very hands-off. But in terms of, you know, being close-knit and things like that, there are many women out there who would have, you know, if they'd lived their life again, would have chosen not to be mums. In which case, if you have that village there, that support to take care of that child, then great. I mean, I know of a couple, they used to be clients of mine, and they moved back up to Yorkshire, because they didn't have the support here. They had twins, and they both had high-end jobs, which were just very demanding. And at the end, they just said, no, we can't cope. So they went back up to Yorkshire, where they had their parents to help, and they didn't try to, and that's another thing, we're trying to do it in our own strength, to look after children, to make us look like we're good parents, quote unquote, If we ask for help, then that means that we're not good parents. And, there's so many factors that come into it, and the pressures on people to be good parents, whatever a good parent is,
right?
Which then adds pressure onto children, and the whole upbringing and the whole ethos of, well, why am I a mother at the end of the day?
Yeah.
I've said a lot there, so.
No, but I'm just like soaking that in, because that is brilliant. That perspective of it, you nailed it. Like in the Western culture, which is just a blip of it's just Western culture. But if you look at so many other cultures where they have much more of a village mentality, there's, I don't, my husband would know more about this, but, countries that are in much less in terms of socioeconomic status. And I mean, culturally, it's, you can't even compare. And if I was to go, so a Westerner was to go to Ghana and visit, I would be blown away by their daily practices and routines. And I think a lot of people would be shocked,
Yeah.
It's gotta be, I'm just sitting here thinking, I'm thinking about like a 3-year-old. A 3-year-old is capable of getting up. I mean, typically, like a 3-year-old, okay, I'm going to be a little bit sexist here, but a 3-year-old girl can be quite independent. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm picturing a 3-year-old girl, in a village. She's curious about something, and she's going to go off and do kind of search, and and that mom is probably not going to see or notice that she's gone for like 10 minutes, or I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And it's gotta be, and that's gotta be normal.
Yeah, it is.
Right? Because, whoever friend down the street, about 200 yards down or 100 yards down, is gonna know little Susie or whatever, or this 3-year-old girl.
Yeah.
And automatically they have that as adults in that community, they know that they have a responsibility for all the children that are roaming around. Definitely. And obviously if you see a child that is in need of help or something like that, they'll take action. Yeah. Whereas here, I mean, unless it's like an obvious emergency situation, I think that just humankind, we're gonna jump in and help. But like, when you see a random like 3-year-old roaming around, you're not sure like, are you gonna question it?
Yeah.
Is it right? Like if I saw a 3-year-old kid roaming around in Sainsbury's, I think as a mother, I'd probably just be like, I'd probably count like a few seconds and watch, and then after like probably about 30 seconds to 60 seconds, I'd probably be like, okay, there hasn't been a mother or an adult that's shown up.
Or anyone shouting for their children.
Oh, I have a story. Like, actually, do you know that place, Kid Space down the A23? It's way down past like Croydon. Like, it's just down the road, and it's this massive, like enormous warehouse of space where kids, it's like an indoor gym where it's just all padded, and it's crazy. It's insane. It's like a complete it's just nuts. I mean, you walk in and the sound is just kids screaming. Like if I was to find, a sound bite or something on YouTube, or Google sound in kid space, it would just be kids screaming. Like, cause that's what it sounds like. It's insanity. Yeah. So, I remember going there one time, and when you go there as a parent, you gotta actually have like the strength and the energy to like, okay, prepare yourself. Okay, we're gonna go to Kids Space. So anyway, that was one of the days where I had a lot of good energy, and I went. And there's this section where this is a while ago, and this is when my youngest was a little bit younger, where it was better that she was in this very young area, which is not much bigger than this room, padded, and there was I don't know, wasn't even a 1.5 year old baby, like walking around and in this section. And I kid you not, it must have been at least 10 minutes of this kid, this toddler. I mean, mind you, it's in this padded, sunken in kind of gym thing. But this child was toddler baby was walking around, toddling around. I would say definitely not more than 18 months old. And there was a couple of moments where the child would like kind of like tumble or fall and just kind of clearly like, you know, be a little startled or injured for a split second. And, you know, I'm just watching, and obviously like I'm just observing because my child is there, and I'm observing like partly because I was shocked that an adult never showed up. So after one point, there was I think the kid, that toddler, I don't know, bopped one of the other kids or did something that was just like, okay, that's, you know, like my foot is coming down now. So, and at this point, so after about 10 minutes, that's a long time.
Yeah.
I was, because it was building up inside of me, I was completely appalled at this. Like, so I stood up and at the top of my lungs, because it was like a big space where parents sit and lounge around and have coffee. I said, "Who is responsible for this child?" Like,
Love it.
yeah. And I just, you know, and of course, within 5 seconds, a mom kind of, you know, marches over. I am. And she looks at me with this, like, how dare you, blah, blah, blah. And I said, is that your child? And, you know, I kind of like to always take the Socratic method, you know, just give them a chance to, you know, and she's like, yes. I said, well, I've been sitting here for the last 10 minutes and no one, not one adult has been obviously monitoring. And she came from like across the room.
My goodness. And
then because it started heating a little bit, because she just was giving me this like attitude and defending herself. I said, look, I'm just actually I care for your child, and you know, they're tumbling around, and there were moments when, you know, it would have been nice if you know, paid a little bit of attention. And I tried not to be like too judgmental or condescending, you know, but it's a little difficult in that scenario. But then her cavalry, because they saw me, you know, kind of giving her some, her cavalry, like a few other moms, came marching over to defend her. So I said, look, all I wanted to know, actually, the bottom line is there a parent present for this child? You know, I mean, like, kids get abandoned all the time. I mean, I don't know. So, yeah. So the point of that story was just, like, these mothers are just, you know, you get surprised sometimes. But in the Western culture, through my eyes, it was like, you know, whose parent, you know, who belongs to this son, you know, and yet in a village, that would have been probably completely normal.
Yeah, it would have been, oh, that's such and such child.
Yeah.
Okay, is she hungry? Is she, you know, does she need a nappy changing or something? Is she upset or is she happy? Or, you know, or where's your mum? Does your mum know that you're here? Or that type of thing, you know. Yeah. But like you say, you gave the example, you know, you speak to someone else's child, then someone's coming over with a dagger, you know.
Yeah, totally. But, she had this whole defensive thing, like, don't tell me how to raise my child. Yeah. But I also had this thing, like, each child or every 2 children should have one, like, or my Western, like, cultured mind has been jaded to the point of, well, there should be somebody responsible. And yet if I had more of the, other culture mindset, it would have been perfectly fine. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't have that judgmental way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah. That's actually an interesting kind of, like, way to look at it.
Yeah.
Because I love children. And when I'm in one of those kind of, like, areas or at a playground, if a child, whether a child is being really sweet and just sort of, like, befriends one of my kids, it's like, oh, da-da-da, and, like, that the parent's probably watching what's going on. And at the same time, I'm the first adult. If I see a kid acting like a complete, total, like, jerk, I am the first adult to be like, that behavior is completely unacceptable. Yeah. And if a parent's going to come over to me and challenge that,
I mean, at the end of the day, we're responsible for bringing up adults, aren't we? We're bringing up children to become good citizens, so to speak, in today's society. So if another child is going to do something which is going to cause some type of harm against another child or speak in a certain way that one doesn't deem correct, I believe we're well within our rights to correct that child and say, well, how about if you said it this way? Or why are you so angry? Or why are you saying that?
Yeah.
And I think we've got a lot to blame the government for in terms of the so-called nanny state of how we're supposed to say, bring up children, what we're supposed to say, what we're supposed to do, etc., etc. And looking at today's society, children don't want to go to school. They don't want to listen to their teachers. You've got teenagers who are busy, unfortunately, killing their teachers, speaking back at their teacher. When I went to school, you had the cane, you had the slipper, if you were out of line, And now children have been allowed responsibilities that they don't even know how to handle. Basically, too much freedom that they just don't know what to do. And some of the children, even that I speak to, unfortunately say, oh yeah, our teacher lets us do this or that, but I wish I had guidance or boundaries to show me, do this, do that, do this, do that. And some of the parents don't even know what to say to their children half the time because they're like, yeah, but if I say this and the teacher says this, and they're confused as well. So it's like, well, who's in charge at the end of the day? Parents don't know whether they're in charge for their children. Teachers don't want to be in charge for other children. And the government definitely don't want to be in charge of children. They just want to establish rules and stuff. So who at the end of the day is in charge of our children?
I think it comes full circle because it starts, when you were mentioning about parents being having so many pressures of raising children, and doing the right thing. Like how is it, what's the right way of parenting? The pressures of, specifically we're talking about women here. I mean, the pressures that we have as women, it's enormous. And then, you want to parent the right way. And there's just so many different books out there on like, this way is the best. And, and it's just, it comes full circle because you're trying to raise your child in such a way. And we're all so exhausted. We're like, we have no more energy, like down to the last drop. And then, it's kind of like this rote rhythm of you have a child. I mean, I know now a lot of things have shifted with homeschooling and things like that, but for the most part, at least as far as I know, unfortunately, and I mean, this is kind of like another, we don't have to go into the whole schooling system and how kids are nowadays just so schooled, but it's about daily, or that routine that expected you have children, both parents have to work. The mother feels, when women talk about this, I don't know if you've heard about when a woman has a child, and before she had the child, she was working full time in a career. And then when she has the child, and this is completely unexpected, she realizes that she actually would prefer to either go part-time or not go back to work as early as expected, or not go back to work at all. I mean, there are some women that, really want to go back to work, and, and that's what they feel. But I have heard of a lot of women, in my experience, most friends and most women that I've spoken to have said that it was a really tough decision, but their heart was saying, I want to stay at home for a certain amount of time. And, that pressure and that kind of pressure to go back to work, and then, what's expected, and then the child has to go to nursery and then have childcare, and then they go to school at age whatever, 5 or 6. And then, it's just this hamster wheel.
Yeah. And plus for mums, I believe, and having worked with mums in the type of work that I do, that a majority of the time, if they're under that pressure to have to hand over their baby at, say, 6 months, even a year, their bodies physically are not ready to let go.
Oh, do you notice that?
My goodness, because it's such an emotional trauma. One, in terms of when you're pregnant and you're carrying a child, there's so many hormonal activities going on. 2, when you give birth. And then 3, through nursing that child. And that body, I believe that body has to go through a process of recovery. And that includes when you're doing the releasing of that child to go into someone else's hands, in terms of going to school or going to nursery, taking care of the house, etc., etc. And we go back to the village perspective, that parent, that woman who gives birth, would have that space to be able to, basically, she would just be sitting there. Her job is basically just to feed the child, just to nurse the child. Everybody else around her is taking care of the cooking, the cleaning, etc. The other children, if she's got other children, so that it gives her body a chance to recover. And then when she's at that position to be able to start doing little chores for herself, or she desires to do that, then she gets back into that routine of doing it. Whereas now it's kind of expected, right, as soon as you've popped the baby, right, you're back in that kitchen, you're back working. I mean, I've heard women who want to be super women, business women in particular, like, oh yes, I gave birth yesterday and I'm here today and I'm treating my clients, I'm speaking to my clients, and I've got my baby on my boob, and, and I just think, why?
Yeah.
Give yourself that opportunity to recover. There are other women out there who would be happy to, take the baby off your hands and look after the baby whilst you recover. You spend that time sleeping, you spend that time nurturing yourself. And it's in the Western world, this is this race to get back and to prove yourself that, well, I'm a strong woman, and I'm going to be a responsible mother, and I can do it all. And then they crash and burn. Yeah.
I think and it's so great that you a lot of your clients are those women. Yeah. That really gets to me, because I know for a fact, because I have a couple of friends years ago who felt like they had their own business, and they felt so much pressure to get back into it. They were so stressed they couldn't breastfeed.
Yeah, exactly.
That stress level. And, I was thinking when you're talking about how, when in a village perspective, when a woman has a baby, what's also brilliant is that the other mothers who are experienced mothers, who have little older children, they're teaching. It's a natural thing to guide them and teach them, right? And here it's like, you got to go to a group. Yeah. You got to find where the group is. It's great that that's available in this city environment, but it's like so structured. It's so
I mean, if we look into even tribal communities, okay, so we go a level deeper, and it's all about learning. You watch and learn. There's nothing written. So it's a case of when that woman gives birth to that child, like I said, the responsibility is everybody's responsibility. But that woman has so much confidence to know that she can just hand that child over to her mum, her aunt, even her grandmother, you know. And in some cases, some of them are even nursing that child as well, you know. But she's watching. She's saying, oh, okay, so that's what I do to bring up my child. Okay, this is what I do to feed my child. Okay, this is what I do to correct my child, etc.
Yeah.
You know, and if it's a male, then that male goes off with the male adults and learns how to hunt or how to provide for the group from a young age.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But Western society, I mean, I really do feel for the children in this Western society, because there's pressure on them to have the latest gadgets, to sit in front of computers, to sit in front of TV, to wear the latest trainer, you know, and I just think, oh my goodness, you know, what are we bringing up here?
Yeah.
And it really does pain me at times. And, you know, when some of my friends come to me and they complain and they say, oh my goodness, you know, my child is forever just got their face in this gadget, you know, and I said, well, who's given them the gadget?
Absolutely.
But they feel powerless to go against the grain.
Yeah.
Which is why some are equally, like some of my friends I know who are just taking their children out of schools and they just say, no, we're going to homeschool them. We're going to travel the world, you know, because they've seen that the society that they're bringing their children up is not working.
Yeah.
It's just not working for them.
Yeah.
And I would encourage parents not to be afraid to go against the grain. You know, if you know in your heart of hearts that you just think, and you're really pressurized, and you just think, you know what, husband, you know what we're doing is not right for us, and what we're doing is not right for our children. I encourage parents to just go with what your gut says to you.
Yeah.
Because it's never wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. You know? Yeah. That is such great advice. Because I agree. I think that we get stuck in such a level of expectations and pressure, and yet people are so disconnected to those instinctive gut thoughts and emotions, and people think that they need to stick to a certain way to get to a certain result.
Yeah.
And you know, I mean, I have some friends, some colleagues who have homeschooled. In fact, one of my previous podcasts with Dr. Sarah Ferrant, she actually lives in New Zealand, and also Kelly McLaughlin. It was a double interview, and they both homeschooled their family and their kids, and it was a fascinating conversation, because I mean, I was blown away, and I thought, oh my God, like, I could totally homeschool, you know, and I've thought of it before, you know, or go against the grain and you know, but like, yeah, it's something that, I mean, obviously people have to choose what they feel is right for them, but there's a fine line between thinking what is right for you and then what your gut is saying, you know, and if your gut or those voices in your head are saying something repeatedly, you know, that's your wisdom speaking to you. And I think a lot in Western culture, I think a lot, or at least developed countries, you know, even like Japan, and I think a lot of women are not listening to that voice.
Exactly. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're looking at the outside perspective instead of their internal perspective.
Yeah.
And going with what feels right for them and their family. And it's all due to the pressures, external pressures.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so important to be in touch with your heart and your wisdom and your values.
Yeah.
As a person, as a woman. And I think that a lot of women are just not allowing themselves to be in touch with that.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, do you see that in your clients?
Definitely. Definitely in my clients, in some of my friends, you know. And what I say to them, the clue is, if you're feeling run down, if you're feeling burnt out, then you're on the wrong path. It's as simple as that. It's not a case of, oh, I've got too many this, that, and the other. Well, if you've got too many this, that, and the other responsibilities, why are you doing them in the first place, you know. I mean, one child doesn't have to be out every day of the school week. You know, why?
Yeah.
You know, and it is about taking that step back and looking at the bigger picture and saying, right, is what we're doing, does it feel right? And if it doesn't, then start making changes. It doesn't have to be a big change, but just start making small changes. You know, small little changes will lead to the bigger change. And it can seem frightening when, you know, maybe your friends' children are doing well in their schools and they're getting great grades, and you just think, well, what's wrong with me? What am I doing? Oh, I know what. We'll get another tutor in to give them more maths lessons, more English lessons, things like that, you know. And more likely, children need less, but they need more in terms of contact and communication with people, more playtime, because they're creative at that age. They can create a lot more in terms of developing their wisdom, their knowledge through play, rather than being structured. Not all kids are designed to sit down and learn in a structural way. Some are, that's very few, but a majority are very creative before they then develop into a sort of academic style, structural. And normally when you speak with children, you kind of understand where their path is kind of going. And unfortunately for some, you know, they're led in a different path, which is why we end up with adults, you know, because I do some life coaching as well. You end up with adults age in their 20s or their 30s, and I say, well, I'm an accountant because my parents said that I should be. Or, you know, I'm a doctor because my parents said, well, this is the best path for me, or someone advised me to do it because I get more money, or this. But inside, I want to be an artist. I want to be a singer. I want to be a dancer. I want to design houses, or, you know, and it just fascinates me, you know, because we end up with these adults who were like, I didn't want this in the first place.
You know a lot about children.
Because I'm an observer, like you.
Yeah.
I observe, you know, and I guess I've always been like that. I've always been someone who kind of, I stand back and I look and I think, oh, that's quite interesting, and I wouldn't do it that way if that was me, or, you know, I like to look at both sides of the coin. And I offer that to people, you know, and I said to them, well, supposing if this or if that, why don't you try both and then see which one works, you know? And it's funny, it's like at our home group, we got round to talking about vaccinations. And
oh, no.
I said to them, don't even get me started on this one.
Uh-oh.
So
get me started.
one of my friends was saying, because I was explaining my perspective on vaccinations.
What is this home group? What is it? What was it?
It's our church home group.
Okay. So like anything can, any
conversation, yeah. And and I don't even know how we got onto it. I think it was because that's it. I think one of my uncles had flu, and he was saying how the doctors were pressurising him to have this vaccination. So I said to him, "Oh, you don't want to have that vaccination." So I went into all of that, and then my friend said, "Yeah, you know what? That's correct, because apparently, I think it was last year, she allowed her daughter, who's the eldest, to have the vaccination. And then, you know, all the teachers and everybody saying, oh, yeah, if they have it, they won't get the flu, blah, blah, blah. What happened? She had the worst flu ever, okay? Then she said, oh, this is interesting. She's not supposed to get the flu. And then her son started school, and they said the same thing, because it's this new vaccination that they're giving them when they're young now. And she said, no, because my daughter had it and, you know, she came out with the flu. So they were persuading her, and of course she felt her arm being bent, so she just gave in the end. What happened? Her son came down with the worst flu. And then she said, yep, that's it. She said, this year, she said, they've sent all the letters, they've brought the letters home. She said, I just tear them up and throw them away. She says, I am not allowing my children to have those vaccinations. I said, if that's your choice, you go with it. She goes, yeah, because I've seen the evidence. And I said, that's what it's about. With bringing up children, it's trying things with them and looking at the evidence. Does this work for my child or does it not? If it doesn't, then don't do it. If it does, then go with it. You know? It's very simple.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. It sounds very simple. Yeah, I mean, the whole topic of, it's part of being a parent. You know, there's so many things out there, so many, almost too many choices or ways to do it. And vaccinations, it's one major topic that a parent has to explore and research. And unfortunately, because of the medical, just the way we have been raised or ingrained with this mindset or this understanding that, well, you have, when you don't feel well, you go to the doctor.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
it's the doctor who'll tell you how to get better.
Exactly.
I mean, to me, that just sounds ridiculous.
Yeah.
And that health comes from a pill or an injection. Or if that doesn't work, let's take a body part out. But anyway, we're sidetracking. Well, this is another whole episode.
But you see, the thing is, like you mentioned, we've been conditioned that when we're sick, we go to doctors. We haven't been taught about natural medicine enough. Natural medicine has been pushed aside because, as far as the scientists are concerned, there is no scientific evidence that the natural stuff works, which is a load of rubbish, because the majority of the medicine, pharmaceutical medicine, actually originates from natural stuff that's grown in the earth. Okay. But that's why it's all a conspiracy and it's all a money-making activity. So unless, again, going back to Ghana and go to places where I've gone in the Caribbean, and I've spoken with people who live in the villages and they've brought up their children on natural medicine. They just pluck a leaf off the tree, grind it down, mix it with some water and give it to the child, and the child's better. Yeah. That type of thing. And those type of things are being poo-pooed and brushed under the carpet, like, oh no, we don't do that anymore because it's not effective.
But also, sorry to interrupt you, but also isn't in Ghana or in these cultures, isn't breastfeeding just something that is, because the cost of formula is so high, isn't it just kind of the mentality is I have a baby. And just the naturalness of growing a baby in my womb and I give birth to it, the next thing is I plug them into my breast and feed them. Isn't that just the mentality? I don't know.
In the villages, in the towns, it is. Unfortunately, we've got the Western world also bringing in their perspective now and selling the formula. Saying, oh, this is much, much better for your babies, more effective than breastfeeding.
And you can get the men to be involved.
Exactly. And if you're not eating enough, then, the formula will take over and feed your baby. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I know.
Again, it's a spin.
Yeah, just for the record, Lillian is rolling her eyes and I'm rolling my eyes.
People are being told that what they're doing, which is the good stuff, is not good enough. Yeah. And it's about doing thorough research as to what is good for your child. Looking at what we were talking about, the two extremes. Well, this voice says this and this voice says this, but what does my inner gut say? Do your research and make an informed decision as to what is best. Some of us who are strong-headed, if I was pregnant and I heard that advert, or doctor said to me, right, you've got to have the injection for whooping, I'd be like, what injection? What are you talking about?
Yeah, right. And it's just, it's I don't know. I'm shaking my head.
I can imagine someone who doesn't have that confidence and they will take every word that their doctor or their midwife will say to them and they'll just be like, yeah, because they said it's the best for the baby, or especially if it's their first child, and they would yield to that, and sometimes it's heartbreaking because you just think, oh my goodness, especially when they say, oh, this is what my doctor said to me, or this is what my midwife said to me. I was like, oh my goodness. I'd be like,
Yeah. Countries, these developed countries and Western countries, especially America, it's supposed to be the greatest, one of the greatest countries in the world, and yet the health of the society, of the whole, of children, they're sicker than ever.
Yes.
We're trying to manipulate, and I think honestly, I do believe that the theory or the initial invention and theory of, or intention, so to speak, of vaccines and medicine, it's out of good intention. Do you know what I mean? I think that the premise or the intention was to, okay, well, let's help the body be healthier. Let's do something to make the body stronger so that these illnesses don't happen, so that my child doesn't get sick, and definitely, failing that, my child doesn't die. So, well, let's look at the end picture and what motivated science or the medical industry to do that. And so that was back in the mid 20th century. And the problem is that the intention, it's all gone out the window. Yeah. And it's now become this huge, and some people were like, oh, it's not conspiracy and it's not big pharma. But, you look at it and it's, you cannot argue with companies that are making billions. And if something happened that was different and they lost billions, they would notice.
Yeah.
So,
definitely.
You look at these other developed countries and you look at the difference between the way they view, the choices they have and the way they view childbirth and breastfeeding. And breastfeeding just is the most, it's the most amazing. You look at the what's actually going on when a newborn human being is being fed by its mother's milk. The type of immunity, because when a baby's born, actually their immune system is very, very underdeveloped, and the immunity builds from the breast milk.
Exactly.
So, you have children in Ghana or similar cultures where it's much more in that perspective that you're not gonna. You take a look at the health of the children ages 5, 10, 15. And then you compare them to the problems that the children in America or the UK have, like in the Western cultures. And you will not see the same amount of ADHD, autism, asthma, allergies, I'll call it the 4 A's, gut problems, behavioral problems, gun, accidents, and, like you're hopping them up with anti-anxiety drugs, whereas, of course these countries have their other problems, but let's compare, let's see what's really going on here. So anyway, we kind of veered off. Yeah, we kind of digressed, but like I was thinking so let's go back to but this is really fascinating. I love it. I'm having a great time with you.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. And so anyway, the thing that I noticed about this conversation about women and motherhood is that before having these conversations, I used to think, or I don't know where I got this thought, but I used to think like, the women that don't have children probably don't like children, or that's like even too superficial. They really don't like children. Like they don't even want to like deal with them. And that's actually so not true.
No.
From what I've learned from these recent conversations. Actually, every single woman, mind you, I've only had like 6 conversations really, but I've talked amongst other people outside of recording a podcast that actually women adore children in the sense that there's just in just being a woman and having a spiritual motherhood inside, the caring and the nurturing and the love of people and humanity. It's, I don't know, it's actually made me think, I don't know why I had that thought, because it's totally untrue.
I could see why it's easy to think that.
Yeah.
And for some women I know who couldn't have children or have had bad experience trying to get children and unfortunately miscarried, and why they had a hands-off approach. If children came again around them, they'd be like, no, because that would possibly remind them of, well, I haven't got my own children, or I've been through several miscarriages and it still hurts, it's still raw. So it can come across as, oh, well, maybe she doesn't like children, or, yeah, don't go near such and such. Come here, type of thing.
That's a good observation. That's a good point. Yeah.
And so sometimes, like you say, you know, when you question the person and find out what that's really about, underneath it, it's not the case that they don't like children. Maybe they've had a bad experience, or maybe they've had a bad experience as a child themselves, and they don't trust themselves enough around children, you know. So it can be different things. But like what you were saying, as a woman, it's that natural instinct to want to care for a young human being, you know, who wouldn't, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, like you gave the example in the play area of the child, you know, the toddler. I mean, equally, if I see a young child around and I see the child wandering, I'm like, right, where's the mum, or where's the dad, or whoever is responsible? And if not, and if I see the child in distress, then of course I'm going to be like, hey, what's wrong? You know, where's your mum, or where's your dad? Or you just feel that. It's not like you just see a child in distress and walk by.
Yeah, no, of course not. Yeah.
I think from a woman's perspective, whether they are a biological woman, or a mother, or a spiritual mother, you have that instinct in you to care for that young human being.
Yeah. It's very true. So, Lillian, this has been so awesome. And we're on... Yeah, we've been talking for a while. It always goes by so fast. So tell us how we can find out more about you, like if you have a website or on Facebook or, you know, email, if someone wants to reach out to you, if there's any information you want to share.
They can find me on most social media, Facebook, YouTube. What else have we got?
Oh, YouTube. Cool. Yeah.
Instagram, Twitter. Just look for Lillian Lartey.
Okay.
And you'll find me. You could go to my website, iwantmybodyback.co.uk.
Oh, right. Cool.
And where else? Yeah, that's it. An email, info@iwantmybodyback.co.uk.
Cool. I want my body back. That's great. That's so great. We women need you, especially mothers need you in their oh my gosh. No wonder why you have that understanding with women after they give birth.
Yes, because, I've worked with women who initially came to me because they felt stressed, or they were in pain, or they weren't sure about their eating, and then they've fallen pregnant, and then it was like, okay, well, let's deal with that stage of your life, and then they've given birth, and it's like, okay, let's deal with that stage of your life and your body. So it's looking at themselves in a holistic perspective in terms of their health. So I've learned a lot.
Yeah, that's so cool. See, listen, women, mothers, when you have a baby, just take it easy.
Got to.
Do less.
Got to.
Nurture yourself, right? I mean, everything that you said was just so important, so brilliant.
It's so key, though.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Whoa, we covered a lot of topics. If you want to get in touch with Lillian, be sure to check out her website, iwantmybodyback.co.uk. And you can also connect with her on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter by searching for Lillian Lartey, Lartey. I wish you all a wonderful Christmas and a happy new year. See you next year from our new series talking to men about fatherhood. I'll be releasing the first one with my husband to kick it off in mid-January. Stay tuned, and I'll see you in 2018. Thanks for listening.